Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God. So then, each of us will give an account of himself to God. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio, and I want to quickly remind everybody that I will also be coming on late night this evening from midnight to 2 a.m., joining Rob Skiba on his Revolutionary Radio program found on Truth Frequency Radio, which will, again, be midnight to 2 a.m., so it's going to be a long evening for me. But I'm honored and always, welcome to have Brother Zphynyah BnYahshua, Chris Adams, joining us for continued dialogue, conversation, and discussion on the Paleo Hebrew as pictographic language and what it means for this generation with regard to unfolding, unlocking, and bringing forth the secrets of the gospel. And so, brother, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, man. Yeah.
Shalom.
Yeah, shalom. Always a pleasure to share time with you. I know that a lot of people are being very blessed by the shows that we do, and that, the discussions, because both of us have spent a lot of time in seeking and coming to discernment on things that are not well received or understood by the mainstream community, and so we're being given different aspects, different revelations to bring forth in this, what is the last generation, the fig tree generation, the truth of the Most High's word. And so it's always iron sharpening iron as well when you come together with others that have done their due diligence and have spent and focused their life on serving and seeking the kingdom. And so I know a lot of the listeners are similar in their journeys and as seekers of lost paradise is what I call them. And so, because our motto for our website and also our company is, the seeker of lost paradise may seem a fool to those who have never sought the other worlds. And so, all right, brother, if you would give out your website, your contact information, where people can go to find and support your work, and also listen to your Facebook events.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook for sure. It's Ancient Picto-Synadic Canaanite with Chris Adams, and I've got a new email address that I've made up just for people to be able to comment, so it keeps it separate, so I can keep them. I can keep everything, more filed. I'm learning how to be more organized with this as I grow, because that's something that I'm learning very quick, to be more organized with everything. But the email address for the new one that I've made, it is, let me pull it up real quick. It's Ancient Hebrew, Chris Adams @gmail.com. And so that I've made it kind of pretty easy for everybody to find it. So you could just Ancient Hebrew, Chris Adams @gmail.com. One of the things you was talking about a while ago was the paradise and it being not such a mainstream thing, and a lot of the things that it becomes foolish to people, and and Yahuwah talks about it being his words are foolish. to some people that they don't understand, and they don't get it. And it kind of reminds me of the parables. I need to start looking at more parables and trying to work them in with the picto script, but that's something I plan on doing in the future. I haven't done any of it yet. But the thing is, even the apostles, they kept asking Yahshua, when are you going to talk to us? When are you going to tell us directly? and then he told them, he said, well, this understanding basically is, if you don't understand, it's because you're lost.
Right.
And that's something, because I know we have a lot of different books, and I know we have a lot of different commentaries, and we have a lot of different things today, but there's nothing that compares to this picto script. and especially when the words give in perfect detail about the account of the event that's happening, and the word is 2 letters and 3 letters for parent and child root words, which the scriptures talks about, give me 2 or 3 witnesses. And we don't realize that these letters alone are words individually, and they are witnesses, and they testify their self, even in the word. And that was something I've been thinking about for 2 days, really, really hard, was this thing testifies of itself. His own word testifies of itself, because it gives so much in detail. And being back to that part about being lost in things, I'm not saying that people that don't know the picto script are lost. I'm just saying the confusion, the not understanding maybe fully, the things that how do we compare scripture to scripture when there's so many different translations, there's so many different words, there's so many different ideas of when things were written, that they were written in different dispensations, and they were written in different times, that they only understood it then compared to what we know it now. And then, so if we take it back from the prophet's time back to a translator's time, which could be 1500, 1600 or somewhere, and we use it for today's terms, we got 3 different dispensations of trying to explain this thing, and then not explain it, but then understand it and comprehend it. And so that really makes it hard for people sometimes. And some of the words that are written from the Hebraic Hebrew, the definitions are not the same as what they're given in English or other languages. So, and I know we got bilingual people listening. So, I want to make clear that when I say English, I want to cover all bases of all different other languages except for the Hebrew. So, yeah, it does. It makes a big difference. And something that I was looking at recently was, I've been studying, and I studied a lot of the Strong's Concordance. That's where I really started using it when I was evangelizing, because it helped me out a lot. But I've learned that even if you want to get a little bit further and you want to get a little bit deeper, get you a lexicon, an ancient Hebrew lexicon that gives you like the 2-letter and 3-letter parent-child root words. And because everything, even through the concordance, takes you back to a root word. But when we start learning from the lexicons and the root words, they give you the more in-depth of the ancient mindset of how it was and what the mindset and the thought was then compared to what it is now. So these are some ideas, some things for those that are studying or starting to, that these are sources that I use to help me understand, to keep an ancient mindset. And it's hard to get out of this Western mind. It really is. It takes time. And it takes revealing really over a period of time. But more words that we learn, the more things start coming together, and we start seeing it because we're visual, because that's what your thoughts are. To comprehend something is a thought, it's a visual. You're envisioning in your mind how it's laid out or what's happening,
Absolutely.
So that's what this whole picto script is it's a visual. It's a visual language. It's a mind. It's the mind concept. It's thoughts, of the creator creating how he wanted things to be. So, I mean, that's about the best that I can really explain it, to give it in detail, to understand this.
Well, think about this, when we had Nimrod, he united the world in a one world order.
Yes.
And he had all of them working together to build the Tower of Babel to try to break into the heavens, to make war with the celestials. And the Most High, well, we know what he thinks about the one world order and the new world order, and he came down and he confounded all the languages.
Yeah.
And ever since that time, Babel has meant confusion, and he separated all
Yes.
the tongues and the tribes. And so the original Hebrew, which we know that according to Jubilees, it is the language of Eden. And it's the
Yes.
language that we will be restored to at the end of days. It is also the language that Abraham, when he was restored to the language of his ancestors, he was taught by the angel to
Yeah.
learn Hebrew. And so he was then able to go back and read all the texts and all of the writing of his forefathers, which had been lost until that particular time. And so we see that as far as the languages and the multiplicity of them, that it having so many, and even the translations of the original to now, like the whole telephone game, things have been lost,
Yeah.
understandings, context, content, associations, meanings, all of that has become confounded. And, especially you go translation over translation over
Yes.
translation, which is
Yeah.
why, yeah, which is why I think it's important to study the ancient manuscripts and going back to as close as we can to the original sources, which, that's one of the reasons why I like to read the Aramaic Targum, because they
Mhm.
are the oldest translations that we have derived from directly from the Hebrew. And even though the English translations of those Targums have only come out since 1862, looking back, studying and reading them, they predate the King James by 2,000 years. Even the Septuagint, which most believe to be the oldest, they are 200 years older than those. And even the Peshitta is older and more closely associated to the original Hebrew Torah, which now is lost and we no longer have access to. But when you look at these, because just as it was in the latter times, they were careful in their translations, in composing those. There was the way that the scribes even adding up all of the numbers of all of the letters, because the Hebrew does have numeric association, that the number after the sentence and after the chapter had to have, well, there were no chapters back then, but when they wrote the manuscript, it had to add up to a certain numerical value, otherwise they would throw it out knowing that something was not right. And so being precise in such manner and careful with such due diligence, looking back at these ancient Aramaic and studying them, we, in my opinion, get closer to the truth with regard to the translations and the context, because we are taking out multiple steps.
Yes.
As far as the Greek renderings and the
Yes.
Latin renderings and then the English renderings, we're going back as close to the Hebrew and as close to the Paleo, the pictographic language, which was given even to Moses, and which the
Yes.
scribes had and studied from at the very beginning.
Well, even the if you look on the Sphinx has got the 22 pictos script in it. It's got it written across, I think, one of the bottom legs on the Sphinx. And
Interesting. Wow.
yeah,
I
it
didn't know
is.
that.
It is. Well, and that's one of the things the people don't realize that what was really going on, what was really happening. Um, they a lot of people only get bits and pieces. I mean, I feel like I get bits and pieces, and I get as much as I can. And I'm like a
Mhm.
sponge; I'll absorb it, and I try to remember it all. I don't know how I do that, but there is a lot out there that isn't. There's a lot out there that's been discovered that I don't know about yet. And what I really worried about, that I think about quite often, Zen, is like the antique world, that were a lot of the museums and a lot of the things that the artifacts and things that get found, they get bought from some of these antique places, and They don't.
Right.
They put it up in storage and don't let nobody ever see it.
Right.
One of the reasons why is because it can bring out too much controversy about, well, that goes against what's already there. It goes against what we
Right.
believe, or it goes against what's been written already. And that's, those are things that are hidden. I mean, um, but I believe no matter what we try to do, that this pictoscript, like he was talking about, it does, it is the mother language. It is the language of Abraham, but it also, that you have to remember Shem and Noah, they carried it across through the flood with them too. So that's a Semitic language, because they're Semitic people. There's a lot that people don't really understand, that how this thing got carried, and how we don't really look at that. All we see is a Bible, or if you're a Hebrew, you see a Torah, and it's just like there's two different Torahs in operation. There's Samaritan Torah, which is written in Paleo, and then you got this Judaism Torah. And basically the difference between the two of them that I've studied and I've looked at is the years, dispensation times. There's a lot more clarifying within the Samaritan Torah than what there is the Judaism. Like, for instance, the Judaism Torah would tell you it's 435 years that they were in Egypt and came out, but that's not really true. It was if you look at the Samaritan Torah, it talks about from the time of Canaan, where they come out going through Egypt. So that has a big play on the years when you start looking at a timeline and you start putting numbers together. And especially when you do something like I start trying to do, where we're using the names of the letters, converting them from the numbers back to the letter names and the words, and then building the word back from it that's holding a secret. I say a secret, if a word, or basically it's describing the details of some of the things that the storyline isn't really giving you. It's giving you a full story, but when we start talking about numbers, so we start talking about things of years and dispensations, and we're talking about timelines, it could throw some people off about, especially trying to keep up with prophecy and keep up with some things. It makes you either you're prepared, but you're not really prepared in the right exact time of things, and so to me, that's basically like telling somebody a lie, even though it's unaware, accidentally, or it's not being done on purpose. But isn't that the way that the deceiver is, though? I mean, how he just wants you to think you're doing right when you're doing wrong, and that's where all this comes together. That we're just trying to get as much truth as what we can to prepare ourselves.
Absolutely. He's turned it so upside down, and
It is.
has led everybody astray with the traditions of, those traditions that have been established as truth, and which a lot of people hold as, faith. Um,
Yes.
and 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 what we have, even in the mainstream now, is a twisting of everything, so that good is evil and evil is good, and that a
No.
lot of people are misled, led astray, and that a lot of things that we accept, um, uh, me personally, with regard, understanding as far as the cosmology, the calendar, even the language and the teachings, all of that has been turned upside down, and so much of what is truth is not found. I mean, you can't go to the mainstream churches and get answers on the esoteric aspects of what we're dealing with and how it
No, you
connects
can't.
to what we
And you
see
can't
in the
even
world.
get it with what I'm doing. I mean, you can't even hardly go to a great Hebrew synagogue and get what I'm giving out.
Right.
But really, I mean, they don't realize, and I didn't realize this. I mean, when I started doing this, I didn't realize that his own people didn't know this. I mean, that tells me
Hmm.
something, you
Right,
know.
right.
I mean, that
Well, I
makes me
mean,
feel
they
so
don't.
belittled.
Yeah, I mean, the Jews, um, even most in this day and age, they don't accept Yeshua as the fulfillment of their prophecies or as Savior
Right.
Messiah, when it's clear when you study the scriptures, even Isaiah, and a lot of the extra biblical materials, that there's no doubt, even with the the Pharisees, they knew, like in the Gospel of Nicodemus, it portrays how they brought Pilate in and then cleared out the temple, and they explained to him and showed to him how Yeshua had become and fulfilled, and how they knew without a doubt that he was indeed the Son of God and that he was the long-awaited Messiah, but yet they implored him to hide that fact um, from the world and from others.
Well, they did a lot of that in Babylon, and they were trying to basically protect them. It's kind of strange when you really examine it and look at it, because they were selfish. I mean, in all reality, they didn't want Babylon repenting. They didn't want anything. They wanted to keep it for herself. So they changed his name. They hid it. They started giving him titles, and then they changed scripts, and they did some
Yahuwah's name too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. They changed the things, and they were hiding it, and that goes back to show that even the nations, I guess, there's like 70 nations that came out of Babylon during the Tower of Babel.
72 total, but okay, 71 including Israel. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, those nations were already there. Those people were already there. They were brought from there to Babylon. And when they went back, they went back and here they are in this confounded language. Now, I don't know about how the people that were already there, unless they were all brought from those places that they went back to, because, my Bible really doesn't, the Torah really doesn't say if there was people that were left behind there that didn't get to come to Babylon. But whenever they did go back, that was I don't know where it talks about other than Babylon and Egypt, both of those places repenting. The only places that I don't think that I know of that in that time hasn't repented was the 5 cities around Sodom and Gomorrah. There was no time for repenting for them. It was just straight up, here come the shin and the fire, and it just laid out sulfur everywhere and burned them up. Now, there was talking about that, there was a video that I seen on YouTube where there was an archaeologist that was kept going through there for many years. I don't know if I brought this up before, but he started examining and looking. Well, some of the areas right there in Sodom and Gomorrah, he was looking at this hillside, and he was looking at the top of some of these canyons, and it got to resemble them, that they're all temples. And whenever he got close to them and started pulling the sulfur area back, they all were temples. And they were all places where they lived, which was very interesting. And I'll have to look for that video again on YouTube. But I do a lot of research on YouTube, and it's kind of hard to believe everything that everybody puts on there. But there is,
of course,
you could dig through there, and you could really find some really good stuff. But I try to follow archaeologists mostly, because they're just trying to present what they find. They're not really they're not trying to present it either good or bad. They're just presenting it. Here it is. It's what I got. So one of the things about the Sphinx, since we're talking about some things in discovery, I guess, there were some watermarks that was an archaeologist had discovered on the Sphinx, and he took pictures of it. He sent the pictures in to a guy that does water checkings and things that, that's what he's a master at, or I guess if you want to call it a master waterman or whatever. But anyway, he looked at it and he examined it, and he said, yes, these are watermarks just for the pictures. And the guy asked him, he said, well, what do you think this picture's of? And he said, well, I don't know. And then he started showing him a bigger picture, and he said, that's the Sphinx. And he said, well, those aren't watermarks. Wait a minute, you just told me they were, and then now you're telling me they're not. You see my point, though, because some things that people discover that they can really show the proof of, then they want to change it because it changes history. So they're saying, well, what would the watermarks be on the Sphinx for? That would make the Sphinx predated from the time of the flood of the earth. Well, I don't know. I just know that the Bible gives you a certain dispensation time of history, and there we go. But there is other things out there that is proven. Say some of the discoveries, even in America. I mean, we have Egyptian glyphs and all kinds of Egyptian markings and exact in caves and all things all over the United States, along with a bunch of the Hebrew and Hebraic things. So they make it sound, and people make it sound and act like that, the United States was discovered from Columbus and all this, but we know the Indians and the Ashkar tribes and the Hebraic Hebrews and people have been here for I don't know how long, who knows how long they've been here. And so there's a lot of hidden truth even across America. I mean, there's things that just people don't want to bring up. They're afraid to bring these things up. And I think people like you and I, we just want to know if we can just connect the dots, we'll have more true answers.
Right.
That's basically what this is coming down to, Zen. It's just connecting the dots, and
right.
Not trying to speak too soon or too fast, but we want dots connected. We want truth.
Well, the history of America is one of the biggest riddles, and especially the ancient Americans that predate the Native Americans, because there was a race of giants that lived here, and that built and constructed many of what are now covered up and what are mound structures, but um, all these mounds that are found all over the world. I mean, even here during the time when America was first being settled by the, all the pilgrims and all those that came across, and that across the waters, when they started farming and settling the land, they started trying to level it, and they kept running into these mound structures. And when they moved them, they found all over. I mean, there are ancient news stories, in even ancient papers going back to the 18th, 19th century that speak about the bones of giants being found and whole sets of armor and the Ten Commandments and Hebrew
Yeah.
script and
Yeah.
and all of these things. Which again, and I'm not saying that this is 100% authentic or anything, but the Book of Mormon talks about some of these ancient peoples and everything.
Yes.
And so that is interesting as well. And then when you look at the chronicles and the accounts, the diaries of the conquistadors when they came through, they encountered even during that time giants all over here in Mississippi and Georgia and Florida and all over in South America. All of these explorers, they speak about, meeting and seeing and even capturing. There was even an account of them capturing a two-headed giant, which is extremely bizarre, and we consider all that to be ridiculous. But this particular giant's body is still held by some museum somewhere, and it can be seen even in this day and age, and it's like anatomically sound. I mean, it is a real body, and it's interesting also that these two-headed giants are mentioned in the Legends of the Jews, which is a text of mythology and
Mm-hmm.
folklore of ancient accounts of these giants. But everybody, before recently, I mean, going back to like 2006, 2005, I remember when Blog Talk Radio was really just starting as a platform, and a lot of esoteric researchers and seekers began their own radio broadcast, myself included, that there were a lot of discussions about the giants and the fallen angels. It was a very intriguing subject at that time, which was just coming to light. And then
Right.
we've seen since that time a flood of books that have been written on the giants and the all the archaeology and the geology and all the remains, the stories of the Lovelock Cave, where all those giant bodies were found in Nevada when the explorers went in and removed all the back guano and then found that there were like hundreds
Mm.
of bones and skeletons, and like many different complete. I don't know if you know that story, but the Paiute Indians. They were at war with the red-haired cannibal giants. They kept abducting their children and some of their tribe members, and they were cannibals, and they would literally eat them. And so they went to war against these giants, and then backed them up into a cave, this Lovelock Cave in Nevada, and then they built a giant fire at the entrance of the cave and smoked them out, and basically suffocated all of them. And so
Yeah.
all of them, yeah, died in there. And then this Paiute princess, she wrote an account of her people's war with these particular giants. And then later, I don't know how much longer, but it was, later that all of their bones were discovered, and it was confirmation of her stories and her people's legends. And so, and then we see all of the stories in all these township newspapers of all the discoveries of giant bones. I mean, going up to even 22 feet
Yeah.
tall here in
Yeah,
America.
I've seen some of the spleen bone or the leg bones, just the
Yeah,
upper
the
part,
leg
leg bones.
bones. Right.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about they're like
Yeah,
15,
Joe
20 feet
Taylor.
tall.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
before I did the Now You See TV teaching, the Jake was he was, I think he was Texas, I think he was, and he went and visited somebody in Texas there that had
Joe
some of the
Taylor.
Nephilim,
Yeah.
yeah, some Nephilim bones, and and I thought that was really interesting. And I mean, I've seen a lot of this stuff on internet, and I've not really researched a whole lot of it, but I know that it's there, and the scripture does talk about the giants. So, and
Oh
you look
yeah,
at
absolutely, all over the place.
yeah, all over it. So I mean, there's no denying giants. I mean, but what has
Right.
happened to them, I don't know how they ended up being all annihilated, or what's gone with them. I really don't know, but I'm just glad that we don't have to face them, I guess, for today. But whenever Jake
Well,
was there, I thought
just
it
so
was
you
neat.
know about this, yeah, just so you know about this as well, because I've studied and kept up with it in great detail. That there are stories of modern day sightings and encounters with the giants. Even the special forces in Afghanistan, there were a whole group of special forces were slaughtered by this red-haired cannibal giant. And there's a description and a story about how another group of special forces were sent in to find them. They encountered and they killed this giant, this, like I
Wow.
said, red-haired cannibal giant, and they flew his body out of the Kandahar airport, and the pilots have come forth. You can find both L.A. Marzulli and Stephen Quayle speak about and have interviewed the people that were eyewitness and also part of the special forces group that encountered and killed this giant. But there's also, and it's a book that I just recently ordered and I have not had chance to uh, read, but I'll tell people the name of it and they might be interested in getting this. Is certainly something that you might be wanting to check out yourself as well. But there's a individual that married a woman that lives in the Solomon Islands. Was a helicopter pilot for an Australian helicopter pilot, and he used to fly these explorers all over the different Solomon Islands, and he ended up marrying into one of the tribes there. And they speak about how even during World War II, the Japanese and the American military, they encountered giants there, and how the some of the tribes people are even to this day abducted by these giants who live underground. And some of them, being abducted, were held for years by them, and some even escaped later. And so people can, and they describe, their underground cities and their technologies, and basically the magic that they have available to them, which follows along with another group of stories, the Smoky God, where these individuals, the Norwegian fishermen, speak about encountering and meeting these giants in the interior of the earth. But anyways, the name of that book is called Solomon Islands:
Hmm.
Mysteries, Accounts of Giants and UFOs in the Solomon Islands, by a guy named Marius uh, Borayan, Boyrayan. and so you can find that on um, on Amazon. And like I said, it's one of the books that I have slated to read as soon as possible, because you can also listen to his story and the things that he describes, that the elders of the tribe that he married into, the stories that they tell him, which go back, centuries of their encounters and meetings and um, wars with these particular peoples. And so fascinating. And yeah, even modern day. And there's even stories in South America, because Patagonia means big feet.
Hmm.
And so there are giants that live in the Amazon still, down
Yeah.
there in this day and age. So
That part of
fascinating.
that part of the country there, or the world, that is there's not very much that's even really been explored. I mean, they're still pouring out medicines, they're still finding plants that
Oh yeah,
there's
totally.
nowhere else to be found.
Right.
And that's one of the neatest things, that place is so lush, it's so thick, it's so tall in trees, and it stays flooded
Hmm.
and raining, and there's so much. I guess you have made an area that people really don't want to get out and adventure into, that it keeps itself so clean and clear, um, so lush, it's
Right.
beautiful. And sometimes you wonder about even the Garden of Eden. I mean, if you trace back the Garden of Eden, you find out that it's really in Iraq, and where the split of the rivers and everything was. And in our minds, we don't think much about that. But I mean, I'm not trying to push. I'm not trying to push for marijuana or nothing. But just a little history of even plant life.
Right.
How some of our plant life has kept the names. Because tonight I plan on talking a little bit about names and how they describe themselves and things. But
Hmm.
since we're on this plant life thing, that even the word Kush, that's the real word for marijuana, that it originated over in Kush, which is in Iraq. And Kush is where the Garden of Eden was. And they did a DNA strand through science and everything, that all strands of the marijuana plant is come back from the sativa, or which is Kush, that are in Kush. And the strands, however DNA works, I don't know a whole lot about DNA, but I do know that everything can be traced back to the root through DNA. And that's kind of where, I guess, all the different texts, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to get back to the DNA of things.
Uh-huh.
That was something I thought about earlier tonight, was the DNA. We want it back. We want the DNA, which is hidden in plain sight, which is in the blood, the water, which is kind of ironic that the mifta, the baptism and everything, and then they put blood on doorpost, and the death angel,
Right. Right.
and only he could see it. I mean, he wanted to see him. He wanted to see his blood, or what he commanded at the time to be the blood atonement. So, but there's a lot of things that water itself does, that it cleanses, but at the same time, we look at blood like nasty and gory and death and all of these things, and
It
but
carries
if,
the spirit. The life is
yeah,
in the blood.
yes, and mem is the word for water and blood. It's the mem is actually the word for any kind of fluids, and fluids can take three different forms. A gas, a solid, and a liquid. And I say solid as in like frost, or like um, or ice or things. But even then, it talks about the snow caps on the mountains, how they melt, and it's a slow process. And that's kind of how the flow is. The mem is the flow of the ruach. And we don't see the gas and that moisture in the air, but it's there. So mem,
Right.
water is a big, and then water is one of the fastest things that cause erosions. Um, and it goes, and I was thinking about, earlier we were talking about Sodom and Gomorrah and things, but there was a YouTube video on the um, Grand Canyon, and the man took certain locations of the Grand Canyon that they're all, if you look at the Grand Canyon, they all have Egyptian names on them. Every
Right.
one, every one of the locations throughout the Grand Canyon is all Egyptian names. Well, he laid out a
Yeah, I
map,
know who you're talking
topographical
about.
map,
Yeah,
and
Len
the
Bracker.
topographical yeah, and the topographical map laid out just like it's laid out over in Egypt in different
Right.
places of the world,
And
according to
it
the
fits
stars
that
and
star
constellations.
pattern. Yeah, it
Yeah,
fits the Osiris star pattern.
Yeah. So I mean, our Creator has made things to a certain pattern. And as I say pattern, let's just use the word a formula. There's a certain formula because he wants just to see everything in the same way that he has designed things, even if it's on a grand scale or if it's a smaller scale. And that's what we're looking at today, I believe. We're looking at finding the end time, and he's made a way through technology, which I believe in Daniel. It talks about the end time being expansive knowledge, and I do believe that this internet that we have, and like this radio broadcast and things, these are expansive knowledge. These are a way to connect to people that they couldn't be connected to before, and even faster. This is kind of like I don't understand how my voice and your voice sounds exactly the same over internet, but it does. And the expansive knowledge has made it that way. So if we can hear each other, we need to learn how to also connect to hear the word of Yahuwah so that we can, get in contact with him and listen to him instead of trying to spend so much time telling him what to do. And we're we're winding up. We're winding down to the last days. I mean, years possibly. I'm not giving a time frame, but we're winding
Yeah, I
down.
fully
And
agree. Yeah.
we are winding down, and right now there's a big awakening that is going across the world. It's just not here. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there's awakening across the world, Zen, and
Right.
it's getting so great that people are almost getting scared. I mean, really,
Yeah.
there is. There's a lot of people being in fear right now, and
Hmm.
that
Especially
fear.
those that are just coming to knowledge of the New World Order.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So there's a lot of fear, and the fear translates really back to the word remember, and that's what we need to do is we need to get back to remembering what the scriptures is. We don't need to let this fear overcome us to the point that we can't concentrate because that's what fear does. I mean, fear makes you where you cannot concentrate. You're in fear.
Right. Can't
You're
focus.
yeah, and
Can't act.
exactly, and you don't know what to do, and then you make the wrong mistake, and then just like they did whenever they seen the giants, whenever they're going out and spying out the land, they became in fear, and then they came back in fear, except Joseph and Caleb. Here they were the only two adults under the age of 20 that got to go to the promised land. So
Right.
that's that's one of the examples that we need to really observe. We need to really observe the prophets. We need to observe the prophets. We need to observe the prophets, what they were doing, what they did, how they handled things, especially when we're in leadership of somehow. And that's not a scary subject, but for a lot of people, it is. And then we have people that tell us, "Well, you're not a prophet. You're not this or that." Well, what makes us not? What makes us not a priest of the high when he calls us out to be the high priest in the latter days and after Yahusha. And these are some things that I think the mainstream world has put fear in people knowing what their identity is.
Right. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
they have. And that is something that I want to touch on tonight is about identity, that we have an identity, that our creator created us an identity in him. He set an example, and he set an example not just through him, but through his prophets. And then he said it through the nation that followed the prophets and as one people. And we're scattered out across the world. We got 12 tribes scattered out of the world, and people don't even know if they are a tribe. They don't know
Right.
their identity. They
Right.
don't know their identity. And how they're going to find out? Well, if a lot of people are looking for DNA tests today, and a lot of the times, even with like the Cherokee bloodline being the Eshkars, a lot of their DNA tests, they don't even show up at all that they're even Indian.
Uh-huh.
So there's some things that are hidden. And maybe I don't know if someone made it to where that DNA test, the doctors may be lying. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in that field, but what I'm saying is there is a calling in your life, and if you have a calling in your life, it needs to be answered. That's your identity. That's
Absolutely.
that's what I tell people is you have a calling in your life, and you might be like Sammy, you might be little young, and Or you might be 80 years old. I don't know when people's calling starts coming, but I know we're getting closer to this end time, and I know there's more things coming out. And I know my personal experience and knowledge is grown like on fire in the past few years. I mean, just especially in the last year alone, I'm like I feel like I've tripled in my understanding. And something is causing it to rapidly speed up. And if this is speeding up for me, I know there's other people that their knowledge and their calling and things are speeding up in their life. So that tells me something.
It was just May 14th that we had the 70th anniversary of the nation state of Israel. And as I show in my work and the research that I've done, that was the blooming of the fig tree. That was the parable of the blooming of the fig tree that is brought forth in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, and also the Apocalypse of Peter. It's specifically mentioned in the Apocalypse of Peter that the blooming of the fig tree is connected to the house of Israel and the nation state of Israel coming back into form. And in my opinion, when that occurred, that was the indicator, that was the sign for the fallen angels. Because remember, when Yeshua came first and incarnated in the flesh, they said, "Have you come to torment us before the time?"
Yes.
They recognized him as the Son of God and
Yes.
also as judge. And
Yes.
they know that when he returns and he comes in second coming, that the gig is up. That's the end of the game, and that the
Yeah.
harvest then ensues, and there will be at that time the gathering of the tares for burning and the wheat for preservation. And so, without a doubt, they know and they recognize that this is the time. And that's why we see in this generation, in this, since that time, we've seen so much as far as the acceleration of technology,
Yeah.
of everything, the information, the internet, all things coming to light, all that was in the past being renewed and being brought forth to light, everything uncovered, nothing new under the sun. All these things are now being poured out and becoming commonplace. The knowledge of our ancient past, the giants, the fallen angels, their interdiction into the affairs of humanity, the Watchers, the Book of Enoch, also being revealed and studied greatly by the people now of this modern age, and your work, my work, those that, because a lot of people cover the fallen angels and the giants, but
Sure.
with regard to some of these other esoteric subjects, it's not as commonplace. Things like
Right.
pre-existence and the serpent seed, things like that. There's still very few teachers and instructors on those kind of revelations, and they're huge with regard to
Yeah.
unveiling the gospel.
Well, that reminds me of that we're talking about, things all the way, even look at Daniel.
Right,
And
exactly.
he was, this is something that I mean, I really used to study Daniel a lot. I used to study a lot of prophecy and end time stuff.
Hmm.
I used to when I was younger, and that was like my intriguing. That's what kept me in here I'm talking about, even when I wasn't doing right, I still thought about prophecy. I still thought
Yeah,
about,
right on.
when I was younger. But the thing was, whenever you wrote on the wall, he there was none of the scribes that could read it or interpret it,
Yeah, right,
and but Daniel was the only one. And,
right.
a lot of people think, well, why couldn't they? Well, because they were living under a different script at the time. And that's what, one of the things was, there was just basically, it was one of the four forms of the Paleo, because Paleo has four different style forms.
Right.
It changed four different times. But what really intrigued me was what about Daniel was, then it starts talking about later in Daniel that where he was given the words and he was told to rewrite the words and roll them up in a scroll and hide them up until the end times. So there is some things left for us that has not been fully unfolded yet.
Right.
And I think that, for people like you and I, we need to remind the people of these things because they feel like they're lost. They feel like there's no hope left. There's nothing left. I'm just standing here waiting. No, you're not just standing here waiting. We are a generation. We are a generation there is something fixing to unfold on us that it's just going to be like the days of Yahushua. It's going to be like the days of Elijah. It's going to be like the days of Daniel. There is some things
Days
coming.
of Noah, yes.
And that's that prophet, that Daniel prophet, he wrote these things and he was told not to understand it, that this is for the end time generation. This is for the end. And that is a very big thing. And knowing that leaves us some identity. That leaves us something to encourage us that there, and I don't know who all is going to be involved in probably one of the largest ministries that we've probably ever seen, other than the two witnesses or Babylon or Egypt were putting. I mean, we're talking about the world here, because wrapping it up to the world, not just a section, but the world. That's a large place. That's a large area. That's the inheritance, of his domain that as a creator himself that is in control of. There's nobody can control the world but him, even though, like you said, the one world government and one world control systems, but he's in control. And there's a lot of things happening even in Israel, Jerusalem right now, where, they're under attack. They're going through wars and stuff. I haven't paid attention in the past week or two really much about that, but these are rumors of wars and things that are starting to come up, and they're not just rumors no more. They're actually starting to happen. So to me, that just it's another eye opener to just prepare and get ready. Don't be scared, but
right.
Just do like what we're doing now. Get into some real truth, and get into something that's really going to bring something that will connect you, to hold you through. That's what I look at. I'm trying to say, you should give me something that's going to hold me through. I don't want to fail. I don't want to fall out. I don't want to be, I don't want to be lost. I think about myself. I think about me being lost, and I tell my group on Facebook all the time. I said, y'all don't understand what I do this for. I said, y'all really don't know why I do this. I do this for me. And I was telling a man last night, I said, I study for me, but commanded through commandments, that I understand the commandments and the laws, that they're just not commandments and laws, that a commandment law is to me is Yahushua asking me to do something and me doing it. It's not really a command to me. It's when I understand a command, it's not like a military command. It's he's my father. He's my protector. He's just asking me, son, won't you do this for me? I made a way for you. Will you do it? And I'm like, okay, I'll try. I'll do my best. I'm doing my best with what he does. And the thing is it talks about who is your neighbor and who is your brother, and treat others as you would treat yourself. And that's how I treat the group of people that are in my Facebook group. Is I treat them like myself. I give it to them because I understand if I want to increase, I have to give. And that's how I've learned this.
Absolutely, yes.
Out. It's to give out. Give out. It's to give. It's better to give than receive. And I mean, it just makes me cry, because nobody knows. Nobody knows but me where I was before and where I'm at now. Nobody. There's nobody that really knows. My family knows a lot about me and things, but there's nobody that really knows but me and the Creator. So when I see other people, and just like with this radio group, I want to give because he gives to me, and This is a process. This isn't something that is just a boastful thing. This is how I know how it works.
Hold on, brother. We'll be right back, everyone, for a second here.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
He was an evangelist and a preacher. I don't think he would lie to me. I'm not saying I wasn't there to see it. I wasn't there to witness it. I'm just going by what he personally told me and talked to me about. So there are some things that I think the awesomeness of our Creator, we underestimate him. That's what I'm saying. And we don't need to, because he's done things with others. He can do it with us. That's my mentality on things, you know.
Well, he is doing it with us.
I know.
I don't think that people should cut themselves short. You know, people saying that, and I'm not in any way saying that any of us personally are prophets or anything like that, but I know without a doubt that I am a scribe unto the Most High, and that I am bringing forth the ancient manuscripts in ways that have been lost for, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of years, and that a lot of the texts that we publish through Sacred Word Publishing are teachings that are not even in print anywhere else. And so that's definitely something that, you know, we are revealing and sharing as far as the sanctity of the word and the riddles of the gospel. But we have a question from Shane in the chat room. He wants to ask you, what does Chris think of the word Eretz, or what meaning has it in the Paleo Hebrew? I'm referring to its use in Genesis 7:6 and 7:10. The English translation have it as meaning the earth, but I think it means that land. Is it a reference? It is in reference to the flood. He says, I don't think the flood was worldwide, but limited to Tarim Basin. And so he wants to ask you about that, and if you have any idea.
Well, I mean, the you know, when the it's funny we mentioned this tonight, because I was looking up, I was answering a question to a lady, Katie, that was in she's in both of our groups tonight, and her name Candy, and she was wanting to know what her name was, and so, you know, I translated it over back to the word over into the Hebrew, which is matuk, which means sweet, an aroma. And where did that take me to? Well, that took me straight over to Noach. And the thing was, is the scriptures does say that he flooded the earth, he flooded the world. And the word Eretz, which is the aloof, the aloof, which is the Rock Kodesh. It's the strong leader, the ox, the Resh, which is the head chief cornerstone, the leader. It also means one. Aloof is the number one. Rosh means one. So when we look at one, we're looking at, you know, an overall. It also means 1,000, and it can mean 10,000. So we see that the expanse. We see one as in a big expanse. Then you got the word Zaid, which, you know, Zaid means to man on his side, and we know that man on his side, and it can mean turn and curvature. It means repentance. It means to turn to. So there is some things that the world was turned up, and things were in chaos. But that also shows me back when the Creator created the Eretz, the whole world was a flood. It was just a big ball of water, right. and the life came up through the water.
I think it was flat, but you know, that's we can agree to disagree. But,
yeah, well, I know we can agree to disagree, and I understand that, and we respect that, and that's okay.
Yeah,
we talked
absolutely.
about that, and we've talked about that, and I respect that, because not everybody believes the same thing or understands the same thing. And that's okay, just as long as nobody wants to argue, because when we argue, then we cause division and we separate.
Not a salvation issue, you know.
Right.
We know who our Savior Messiah is. So.
Right. So but the thing is the word matuk, it brought me to the aroma, where that when Noah, whenever he come off the ark, that he built the altar, and took one of the 7 of the clean and sacrificed it.
Right.
Well, what is really neat about the word the word matuk it was the mem, which is the blood for the sacrifice, and the tal, which is the covenant. And then we got the quaff, which meant the morning sun on the horizon. And so here it was in the morning when he had done all this and that sweet aroma, and he gave the blood of the sacrifice to the animals. And that just goes to show the identity of the word itself, describing itself. And what is important about the word eretz, no matter what the shape is, okay? Because shape is not, like Zen said, the shape of the earth is not a salvation issue.
Right.
It's a big thing about people going around making it a salvation issue. And please don't ever try to do this. I mean, please don't start with all of that with yourself. You'll get in a big argument with people, and we try not to do that in anywhere. And I'm being nice about this. I really am.
Yes, respect people for where they are.
Yes, please. But the thing is even the word zayd, it means to turn. Okay, whether if you believe the earth's round and turning or however you figure it out, but it means repentance to turn, and that to me shows that even the word matuk was showing that the covenant and the word eretz itself showed that since Adam himself was made from the earth, that our Creator had made the zayd in the word eretz in his creation to put into Adam, so that when he did fall, he would turn back to have a place of repentance through the blood. And the name Adam means blood. And the dam in the name. And then you got the talah, or zalah, which was the rib that was pulled out of Adam because he was laying on his side. And that's what zayd also means, is man on his side. And you got zalah, which is the rib that came to Kua. And Kua was the zalah, was she was carried that rib. And zalah means the zayd that came from the man on his side. That the rib is a curvatured area. And then you have the lamed, which is the teachings and learning and the staff, that Adam was her preacher or her leader, and he talked to her and told her about what not to do and to do, about the tree of good and evil and knowledge and things, and not to eat, not to touch, but they did. And then you have the word hey at the end of it, which means bride, and it means behold and revealed. So here all these different letters are all adding up to their names and to the eretz itself. And it showed a place that even for the bride, not just Adam and his wife, but for us, there was a place of the zayd for repentance through the dam of the blood. And this thing just unfolded. And this thing just keeps unfolding and getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we're going through, and especially when you apply this picture olive bait together. So I think too many people try to get focused in one spot sometimes, Zen, and they get stuck right there, and they think that, if I could just get this one thing figured out. And that kind of reminded me of back when I was younger. If I stare at my hand in front of my face long enough, and this is what I used to say, if I just could get rid of this one thing, if I could just get rid of this one thing, I'd be okay. But let alone, if you have your other hand behind it, you can't see it. And so this hand in front of your face goes away, and then there's another hand sticking back there, and it gets closer. And so over a period of time, we're sitting here trying to figure out if we could just figure this one thing out. I think we need to research into more and other things and not try to just get stuck in one thing, in one place. That our Creator reveals things in other ways, that sometimes some revealings is already established in our life. It just hasn't come to pass yet. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from experience on that the things that we try so hard to understand, many times we spend most of our life trying to fix something that it isn't time for. And that, not that we're wasting time, but we just put too much effort in it. And I've learned just to lay back and just relax, and just, if I can't get something understood in this one area, sometimes that I start looking in other areas. And a lot of times that's the dot that connected it.
Right.
That's the dot that connected it. And, I'm just trying to encourage people, maybe that we just need to start opening up and being more flexible
Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
that not that your question was wrong or anything. I'm not trying to use. I'm just using this scenario that I want to see more people increase, and I love questions. And I mean, I got
Yeah.
on the postings on the YouTube from some of the past shows that we've done, and started answering questions and started doing some things, and I'm learning how to be more web multitasking, and along with everything I've got. So I appreciate everybody that's asked questions, and I've gave answers to, and I expect some more. You know, there's a lot of things I don't personally know. Okay, so if I can't answer you, I'm not gonna. If I delay on answering, there's a reason, because I'm pretty cautious about, at least, especially using this picto, that I just want to describe it the way that it shows it, and I can't go outside that. You know, I can't really give extra words or make it sound one way or another. I mean, that's just how this is to me. You know, that's just how I use this. I want to use it the way that it was made and stay right there with it. And that's where I'm at, I guess, you know, just using it the way it is. And, but there's nothing wrong with questions. If we don't get anywhere, because even our creator says that we don't have because we don't ask. And
Right.
in Jeremiah in 6:16, where it says that seek the ancient path, he says to, you know, come and look, and then to ask, and then walk in the way, in the good way. So, you know, there is a time to observe, and that's where the aim of the eye is talking about looking, that we are to look for answers. We are to look for answers. It's not about going to church, and it's not about going and listening to a preacher preach to you and just hearing the word. You see, there's other qualifications that we have to seek the answers, and that's what we're doing. That's what this group right here is about. We are seeking answers.
Right.
You know?
We're to read and search out, um, study and to show ourselves approved. You know, it's
Yes.
the glory of God to conceal about it, and the glory of kings to seek it out. And so, yeah, we're called to do a lot more than just go and listen to a sermon on a
Yeah.
topic that somebody picked out and never read the Bible. And I understand that it's difficult for a lot of people to make sense of the word, because a lot of truth about it is not taught in the mainstream churches, and that's why it's important for people that are really seeking to embrace alternative and to listen to things that challenge you and that make you feel uncomfortable and that um, may be contrary in opposition to your current belief system, because right now most can't even explain what happened in the garden. And so, I mean, and that's the basis for the enmity between the seed lines that plays out throughout the scripture. And if you don't understand the beginning, there's no way you're going to understand the end or the middle or anything in between. And so, all that is so very important. And like you said, you never know where you're going to find truth. It could
Right.
be in studying something that you were greatly opposed to, and that was contrary to your belief system, your convictions. But in having an open mind, because it's only with an open mind that one can learn anything. And
Yes.
I do find that most people, what they call study and what they call research, is listening to those things that affirm what they think they already know. But it's
Yes.
in listening to those things which you're not used to and which challenge you in learning and in perspective. That's where you can find the most growth and the most um, as far as growth and evolution and knowledge. And that if you stay in your little box and you only listen to what tells you and affirms as far as the four walls that you've locked yourself in, that's all you'll ever know. And yet there's so much more. You've got to open the door and go outside and open the windows and peer out. And you have to do these kind of things to see that there's a huge world of knowledge and truth all around you, and that we can learn from everybody, really. Doing what we do, we learn from each other. The fellowship that we share with the listening audience, we learn from them just as they learn from us.
Well, it's just like, Yahushua says, he says, does not nature, or I think it was St. Paul he was talking about. He was, talking about, does not nature itself teach us? And so there is some things that, that just look at nature itself. Look at the sap that goes up and down a tree. Look at the seasons that change, and then we start talking about seasons, and here's Yahushua, and he's talking about seasons. He says, y'all can see the red in the sky. And, most people that understand about seasons or the red in the sky, there's my grandpa was a sailor. He was in the Navy, and he always used to tell me, red in the morning, sailor take warning, and the red at night, sailor delight. And, as a kid, listening to these things, and that kind of reminded me of the scriptures that, where you used to talk about red in the sky is whether if it's morning or rain or things. And so there is things all around us that we need to pay attention to. And the Indians, even the Hebrews, they were very familiar with seasons and very familiar. The Egyptians were very familiar, especially about the Nile, and especially about the rain, and especially about all the different things that came through the Nile that brought the rains and the floods, and then it moved the water, moved dirt around. And what did the dirt do? It made it more fertile. And, there was some, it doesn't matter what nation that you are, okay? We were all born sinners, regardless. But we can all learn. Every nation is just like the 12 tribes. They were all allotted a different section of land. And their sections of land basically were the sections of land were named according to what they were. Say it was the gold, or whether if it was the grain, or whether if it was, there was certain things that section of land provided for. And that's pretty much how our Creator allotted the names for those and the tribes in that land, was what the things was the provision of that was. So, those are things that the identity of provision of where you're at has a lot to do with how you understand in your own culture. And your own culture may not understand things the way another culture does, because the differences of climate control are all kinds of things. But that's one of the greatest things that I found about, one of the things about the Pictoscript is the pictures explain themselves to everybody, no matter what tongue, no matter what language you are. You really know what an ox looks like, you know what a dollar or a doorway looks like, you know what the cross looks like. There is certain things that our Creator knew, that he made this Pictoscript universal.
Yes.
He did. And that's one of the most beautiful things about this is we may not understand everything about the Bible or about Torah, but there's some things that he made such a common ground with this script that pretty much explains itself. Here lately, I've been having people at my house. I took a guy in that I'm letting stay with me, and he's starting. He needed a place to stay, and he's a local. And I don't even live in a very big town. The population of my town is like 297, but it's not very big. I live in the middle of nowhere, and but it's a young guy, and he's like 24, and he started learning the script with me. And every now and then he'll bring some friends over, and when he does, his friends will go, "Hey," because I got a big board on my wall, and I usually have stuff written on it, and they'll go, "What is that?" And then when they start. Usually, I want to say this, I guess. Usually when someone starts questioning, that's the best time. You're not pushing something on them. And I'm talking about how to open a door to witness to people, is you're not pushing religion, I don't believe in, but you're not pushing truth or anything else on anybody. When they start questioning is the door opener. And that is one of the best things that I've learned, that let people question you. If you live in a separated life and people notice that, we let people live and witness by our testimony. And sometimes just our way we live gives a testimony. You don't even have to say anything. And And that's kind of what's happened here in my house is the way that I live inside my home. And if somebody comes and sees what I'm doing or sees some things written on my walls and on my big dry erase board, and they start questioning, then I get to showing them. And I usually start out with showing them the identity of names and the simple things. And I won't even tell them what some letters are with the picto script. I'll say, what does that look like? And sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they don't. But when you give a person that opportunity and that chance before giving them an answer and they get it right and you tell them they do, you know what that does? That makes them feel good. That makes
absolutely.
I'm giving some people some pointers that when you start using this script, these are some things to do that makes it easier. It makes it more comfortable and fun. Because I've tried it all. Believe me, I've tried it all, Zen. And I want to be, I want to be comfortable with people with this because this is so new to people. It really is. It is so new to people that they don't even know what to think of it, really. They really don't. And if, especially these younger guys that's been coming to the house, they don't know church. They don't even go to church.
Right. That's actually better for them to not be brainwashed like that. And then they're open. Yeah.
That's right.
They don't have a preconceived notion or judgment.
Well, that's right. And just like I learned in construction, I had a construction job one time, and he said, well, you worked for several construction companies before, and you're going to be hard to train. And I said, no.
Right.
He said, well, yeah, you will, because you got all these other men that's already trained you. And I said, well, I'm flexible, and he's like, I hope so. So, but yeah, that's one of the things that you're talking about, that once we get into denominations and things, we have something set that we throw a wall up, we throw a wall up. And that's one of the most dangerous things about religion or denominations. I don't consider myself in a religion. I consider myself as in a lifestyle, because that's what this was. This was a lifestyle given to his people,
right? And
it's different.
Church is a way of being.
Yes,
not somewhere you go.
Right.
Not something that you do. It's a way that you become.
Yes, and that's one of the best things that you could describe to somebody is they say it's a lifestyle. And I'm like, yeah, because, look at a garden. I mean, I tell people, this script's a garden. It shows you a plow, and it shows you the seeds and the sun and the water, and it's a provision. It's a lifestyle. And they look at me a little bit different because they're used to that. They're used to the fire, brimstone, preaching hell and fire, and how all that goes through churchianity and things. But this is one of those moments in my life that I'm learning to relax with this, and it just being relaxed in this the best that I can, being nice, real big about being nice to people. I mean, Facebook is not a very nice place sometimes, and be careful. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble making enemies.
I get attacked there probably every day. Somebody attacks me somewhere.
And you know what I'm talking about. And especially with this script, whenever someone, my own family, they, every now and then my family will, the few that I have that's still in American style Pentecost and stuff, they're like, well, I thought you were, you're going off, you're going away, you're backsliding or things. And they don't, you see, they won't even listen to me. And it's hard. So there's some areas with this, even in areas that it can be lonely at times whenever you feel like you're the only one around that knows anything about this. But in time, you meet people like Zen and like I did, and you meet other people that have areas in their life that they felt the same way at some point in time, I'm sure, felt separated or different, or, there's a lot of things that this comes with. This thing comes with a lot of separation, and separation is part of the scriptures. And, but there's also a lot of love, and there is a lot of respect for this, for those that are called into it, or those that are at that time that it's being revealed. There is a real close connection with people, and everybody's my brother and sister. I look at, I tell everybody loves me. I love everybody, but That's how I try to go about this thing, because
It's like when the church was first formed, like they were all family. A lot of the apostles were the stepbrothers and sisters of Christ, and then the people that were his best friends, his closest associates, and then the church started to branch out to other family members and their family members, and then later, the whole gathering of strangers and acquaintances, and then the faith just spread like fire, just to everybody and everywhere. And then, but in this day and age, we're being called out of the churches because they hold no truth, and because everybody realizes, a lot of people realize, that's why the kids are leaving, is because they're not being watered or fed. They know that there's something wrong with the doctrines and the prosperity teachings and those things that are being related and it's empty, it's hollow for them, and so they're going elsewhere to find meaning and to find true answer, to find a teacher, an instructor, somebody that can give them direction and guidance. And that's why most kids leave the churches, because there's no sanctity, there's no sacredness, there's no nothing real for them. And when they do find it, and and it may be 20, 30 years, but those that are truly seekers, we find each other. It's like there's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and that's really how it works as well. That just like when you seek, you will, or you knock, you will find, and the door shall be open. It's the same way. It works that way. Just like you were talking about, that if you really want to receive and you want to benefit and receive the blessings of the Most High, that you have to give and you have to bless others, and that you have to serve the kingdom as a foot washer, as example to us by Christ, in bending the knee. Yes,
we're
exactly.
a servant. We are.
Exactly.
I mean, don't ever think you're high and mighty, and don't ever think you're high and mighty, you're a king and you're sitting on a throne, and or it doesn't matter what dominion you're in, or it doesn't matter what home you're in. It doesn't. I mean, this man that's staying at my house, he's 24 years old, and he will go. He'll even start to say something, and I'm ready to listen. If this it's funny you mentioned something about even being a foot washer. Well, this is a pretty heavy set guy, and he's young, and so his feet swell, and he's on his feet when he's at work all the time, and his feet. He comes home, he's ready to sit down, and so 9 times out of 10, when he comes home, I go in there and I make a pail of water. And I'm not joking. I make him a pail of water, and I go get him a bar soap, and I don't wash his feet, but I get him a towel, and I get everything ready for him. And it's either sitting here waiting for him, or I get it when he comes home.
I know he appreciates that, man.
Well, and that is the servant attitude. But here's the thing: I'm teaching him how to host.
Yes.
Because I'm a host of a group, and you're a host of a group. We are hosts, but we are servants. That is what people don't understand. We really. Don't ever put me on no pedestal. Don't ever think too highly of me. I'm just a servant, really. It's a humbling experience, but it takes a lot of work. I'm going to tell you right now, it takes a lot of I don't want to's. But whenever the man is bringing friends home, and the man's bringing people, Yahushua's just doing some work, some mighty things. This guy is out telling his friends how good of a host that I am. That these young people, they don't see that when they don't see that in their home. You see, they don't see that with their other friends either. There's some things that these people are seeing that is a different lifestyle. That's what I'm saying. This is a lifestyle. They're seeing some things, and they're not just seeing some things, they're feeling it. I mean, there's kids that's coming back. They're like, man, I want some more of this. I want to learn. Listen, there is some things. If we go about this the right way, with the right attitude, there's no telling who this is going to touch. It may turn one of the Christianity preachers over, or the mainstream preacher. it may get a hold of one of their family members. And we never know who this is affecting outside my walls of my house. I don't know. I'm not trying to find out, but I'm just saying there's some things in this that I'm learning to be a servant, and this is serving me, so I need to serve it, and it's equipping me with the tools to do it. And this olive bait script is a tool, and it's like I was telling someone the other day that we can be equipped with tools all we want to, but the tools do you no good if you don't know how to use them. And that's one of the main things is it doesn't matter what you're doing, that you sometimes all you need is just to learn how to use a few tools to be successful.
That's so important, because if you don't know how to use the tools, you can't get the job done. And a lot of times, like in what we're doing, that job is piecing together the puzzle of truth.
Yes. And so it's a learning process, and it doesn't stop. And I know we got about 15 minutes or so, Zen. Can I get into some of the, a little bit of the identity things?
Yeah, sure.
And I want to, I'm grateful to tonight that we've got this far, even talking the way we've done, because, there is a time that we just need to encourage, and we need to kind of open up and give some experience and details about things. And that's good because other people need to hear this.
Right.
But I want to use, since we're on the olive bait, and I want to use the word olive and bait, but I want to use it as the word from the word ob, which is the first two letters of olive bait. It's the olive bait, which is the word ob, means father. And from the father forward, I want to, since we're talking about the Semitic language and the Semitic people, how it got to, let's work it up till, I probably got enough time that I can work it till at least Abraham, okay? Because even the word Abraham, it has the word Ab in his name, the first two letters. So we're going to talk a little bit about dispensations of time, about things being fulfilled and fulfillment. And if we look at the olive bait that was created first, okay? So we got the thoughts of the creator, and he turned them into the thoughts were pictures, turned into letters, which are in individual words or self. They have a meaning, interpretation, and a numerical value, okay? So that's the fivefold ministry. There's 5 things to each one of these. So you have the word Ab, Father, and you have the written out Ab, Father, in the olive bait is what it would say if it was written out in letter forms. So then we get to Aber, okay? Now, Aber was the great-grandfather of Abraham. And what the word Aber means in the word abrate, which is the correct word for the word Hebrew, and it means to cross over the other side. Now, when we're talking about crossing over the other side, we get to Aber, and Aber is the olive, which is the spirit, the bait, which is the temple and the flesh, and then we have the Rosh, which means head and chief first. So here we have, even in a Semitic language and a Semitic people, we get to the word Aber, and the name and the person Aber, which became the first to cross over. So then we have going through a generation of the creator as Aber, his son, or as we are the children of our creator. And then we get to Abram. Now, Abram is the same word as Aber with a mem added to it. What is the mem? The mem is the blood and the water, and that goes to show that even Aber to Abram, that means cross over the other side, which is crossing over the river. So putting this whole thing together is very important. Now, a lot of people start talking about names, and they believe that Abram's name was changed to Abraham. But in all reality, his name wasn't changed, it was fulfilled. Now, how was his name fulfilled? Well, we look back at the time that Abram went from Abram to Abraham. The mem is still there in Abraham as it is Abram. What was inserted was the hey. The Hay means behold and revealed. Well, what was he behold and revealed? Well, at the time, there was Sarah, and she became Sarah. And Abram became Abraham. And both of them had a Hay put in their name. Well, what is the Hay? Behold, revealed bride. Oh, behold, revealed bride. Yes, Sarah's going to be pregnant. And Abram, guess what? I am making a continuation. I am making a revealing in your life also. That's that Hay in his name as Abraham. That he was revealed that his wife had a Hay put in her name, that she was being behold and revealed